German. Unfortunately, our guest speaker will not be translated into any other language because we have had a technical mistake due to the services of the European Parliament. He did not receive the correct mic. So unfortunately, I have to tell you, we will follow his speech in English. More announcements. We have discussed in our last meeting that we are looking forward to having the next IPM in Brussels on the 5th and on the 6th November. I can tell you that I took the opportunity to have a courtesy call with our counterpart, with Supra Mahumapelo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperations of South Africa in August, early August. And Mr. Mahumapelo told me that for him and for the Parliament in South Africa, it's a high important event to come to Brussels, and that they appreciate our invitation, and that when time will come, we will agree on the respective agenda. You have seen that this invitation that we launched to our friends and colleagues in South Africa takes place a fortnight before the G20 summit, which is, of course, very, very useful for both sides. Additionally, I can tell you that we have a P20 summit of parliamentary speakers in Cape Town from the 1st to the 3rd of October, focusing on harnessing parliamentary diplomacy for realizing global solidarity, equality and sustainability. From our side, from the side of the European Parliament, the EP will be represented by our Vice President Schaldemose, and she will participate. Additionally, I could tell you that is not with direct reference to our ongoings here, but has also to be respected, that we have some new rules governing attendance in the chamber and in also meetings like ours. We have the rule that in the chamber and during meetings of parliament's bodies, mobile phones and other electronic devices shall be kept silent and may not be used for the purpose of making or answering calls. In addition, they may not be used for the purpose of taking pictures or making audiovisual recordings when this could harm Parliament's dignity and reputation or would not be in accordance with the principle of mutual respect. So please respect this and observe the rules also in our meetings. Now we come to point 4 of the agenda, that is G20 priorities under the South African presidency. That is our issue for today. We will discuss the priorities of G20. To this end, we have invited 2 guest speakers, Ambassador David Malcolmson, who unfortunately had to cancel, and we very warmly welcome Mr. Masotsa Mnguni from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa. He is Director for Economic Development, and we will hear about his views on the prep of G20 in a minute. He is joining us remotely, and I would already like to ask our technicians whether we have stable contact. Yeah, great to see you. Welcome. That is a pleasure to meet you again. That's a wonderful occasion to exchange. Allow me a couple of remarks, and then it's your turn. The general idea is, of course, we know how important G20 is for our global development, for our mutual development in Africa as well as in Europe. But we also know that G20 is at a critical juncture. We need more and more deepen international cooperation in multilateral institutions. On the other hand, we see that multilateralism is more and more questioned by important players like the US, but not only. The G20 presidency of South Africa is a huge chance for us as well as for the whole world, but especially also to advance African and Global South priorities by, for example, advocating for a stronger development agenda. The overarching themes of your presidency are solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Does not please everybody, as we know, but is very much in line with our European priorities. That is also following the tradition that was already created by Brazil, India, and Indonesia, focusing on issues that were particularly important for North-South relations, like, for example, disaster and resilience and response, debt sustainability for low-income countries, finance for a just energy transition, and harnessing critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development, not in a mode of new imperialism, but in a way of a win-win partnership. This is our take, and now we are looking forward to your experiences and your preparations for the G20 summit coming very, very soon. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, and it's a pleasure to see you once again following your recent visit to South Africa with your delegation. We also take this opportunity as the South African G20 presidency to also greet the honorable members of the European Parliament, and also express our deep gratitude for the invaluable support the EU delegation has rendered to South Africa's G20 presidency since its launch in December last year. And as the chair has indicated, most of South Africa's G20 priorities are aligned to the priorities of the European Union. With that said, Chair, let me indicate that my mandate this morning is to provide the esteemed a meeting with a progress report of South Africa's G20 presidency. We have less than 75 days to go before the Leaders' Summit. There has indeed been a lot of progress made with about 90 meetings out of the planned 132 meetings of the G20 presidency having taken place both in and outside of South Africa. And as the chair has indicated, South Africa has placed the theme solidarity, equality and sustainability at the center of its presidency, driven by our conviction that global challenges can only be resolved through cooperation, collaboration and partnership. Of course, this theme is also informed by the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which resonates with Agenda 2030 and the related sustainable development goals, including its motto, leaving no one behind. Honorable members, let me then go into the priorities briefly that we have put forward for our presidency, which of course are aligned to the original G20 mandate of promoting strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth. Firstly, we are taking action, as the chair has indicated, to strengthen disaster resilience and response. This takes into consideration that climate-induced natural disasters are affecting countries around the world, as we have seen in parts of Europe, Africa and beyond, with devastating impacts on those countries in particular that cannot afford the cost of recovery and rebuilding. We are thus calling on G20 leaders to urge the global community, including international financial institutions, development banks and the private sector, to scale up post-disaster reconstruction. Secondly, we are pushing for action to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. This takes into consideration that the policy space available to developing countries is significantly constrained by their debt servicing obligations, their climate and development financing needs. For example, the total public debt of African countries in 2022 to last year was close to US dollars 1.8 trillion, which was an increase of about 183% since 2010, with 23 countries paying more for debt costs than critical development enablers like healthcare and education. We are also working to ensure that sovereign credit ratings are fair and transparent in their assessments. We are also, through the finance track of the G20, have established a G20 expert panel, which is chaired by the former South African Minister of Finance, Mr. Trevor Manuel, to review the cost of capital. The overarching goal of this initiative is to investigate the issues that impair the ability of low and middle income countries to access sufficient, affordable and predictable flows of capital in order to finance their environmentally responsible and socially inclusive development plan. We do expect that this expert panel will produce a high-level report with key recommendations for consideration of the leaders at the summit in November later this year. Thirdly, we are mobilizing predictable and increased finance for a just energy transition. This, of course, is pushed through the Energy Transitions Working Group and the finance track. Through this priority, we are calling on the G20 to support more African countries in their initiatives aimed at addressing climate change along the lines of South Africa's Just Energy Transition Partnership. And then, fourthly and lastly, we are harnessing critical minerals for inclusive and sustainable development. In this respect, the South African G20 presidency seeks to have a critical minerals framework document adopted by the G20. This inclusive framework is aimed to ensure that communities and resource-endowed countries benefit equitably from their mineral wealth. In addition to these priorities, we have also established 3 task forces, namely on inclusive economic growth, industrialization, employment and reduced inequality, The second task force is on food security. And then lastly, task force 3 is on artificial intelligence, data governance, and innovation for sustainable development. Honorable members, in addition to these priorities, last year at the Rio Summit, G20 leaders made a commitment to evaluate the G20's first cycle of presidencies under South Africa's presidency with full respect to the principles agreed to at the Cannes Summit in 2011, as well as provide recommendation to the second cycle that will start next year with the presidency of the United States. We are pleased to inform that this review is well underway with the last meeting of the review having concluded yesterday, which was the meeting of the advisory panel on the review involving former G20 Sherpas, including, of course, from the EU delegation. So it is hoped then that by the Leaders' Summit, the G20 review team will submit recommendations for consideration by the leaders in terms of how we can make the G20 more fit for purpose in the current conjuncture. Of course, we are looking at things like working methods, the legitimacy and inclusivity issues, the issues of accountability and implementation. For example, what happens to the decisions that have been adopted over the years? Do we need a monitoring mechanism to follow through these commitments? Do we need, for example, a permanent secretariat for the G20, or should we keep it at its current format, which is an informal grouping? The readiness of the G20 to respond to crisis or future crises, as it did during the 2008 global financial crisis, and most recently during the COVID-19 pandemic. So those are some of the topics that the review is looking at, including the question of rotation of presidencies. And in this work, we are working with the OECD as a knowledge partner, especially given its history and institutional memory in the work of the G20. I must also mention that South Africa's G20 presidency is also championing an elevated and broadened Compact with Africa initiative. This Compact with Africa is co-chaired by South Africa and Germany, and is designed to facilitate economic reforms across the African continent, as well as to attract investments from pools of private sector funds, especially in the global north. The honorable members will recall that the Compact with Africa was originally an initiative of the German G20 presidency in 2017, and hence we are following through this initiative during our presidency. And then lastly, we are also pursuing an extraordinary panel of independent experts on global wealth inequality. This panel was launched on the 29th of August by President Ramaphosa, and is being chaired by Professor Joseph Stiglitz of the University of Columbia. You'd be well aware of the work that Professor Stiglitz has done in the field of inequality. So he will be leading this panel together with his fellow members from different parts of the world. I must also indicate that this initiative seeks to heighten global attention on the cross-cutting issues of inequality whilst advancing South Africa's G20 agenda, in particular SDG 10, which calls for action to reduce inequality within and amongst countries. It is also expected that this high-level panel will produce a report with a recommendation, and this will be the first ever official G20 paper on global inequality. And then lastly, we, following the initiative of Brazil, will be convening the second G20 social summit. This is to ensure that the G20 presidency is not only confined to the ambit of members or intergovernmental process, but to also include a wide range of actors, so that there is a collective shaping of the G20's approach to issues requiring international cooperation. This is over and above the work that is taking place in the 13 G20 engagement groups. So we will invite civil society organizations, think tanks and academia from across the world to join this second G20 social summit. And then if I may go into then the current stage where we are in the process of starting negotiations towards the leaders' declaration, with the ministerial negotiations having started. We had the development working group successfully concluding its work in July, 24 to 25 July. We also had the employment and labor working group concluding its work on the from the 30th and the 31st of July. Additionally, the third meeting of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors took place on 18 July and successfully adopted a communique on issues of microeconomic nature, including discussions on the global economic outlook, international financial architecture, sustainable finance, tax, financial inclusion, and so forth. It is our intention as the presidency to have an ambitious, bold, and concise leaders-like declaration rather than, of course, a regurgitation of what has been adopted in the working groups. It is thus our firm view that with our stated priorities and high-level deliverables, and in partnership with strategic partners like yourselves, the European Union, we can deliver a transformative G20 presidency. I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minguni, for your very comprehensive report on the work of G20, on the processes as well as on the content and your very ambition that you are following. I'm interested in the comments and questions of my colleagues here. We have translation in French and English and German for those who would like to use them, and then will be translated into English so that Mr. Minguni is able to follow us. Who would like to start? Any questions from your side? Yes, that is Vice President Paolo.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. McGuinney. Thanks a lot for your intervention. I don't have any specific question, just a comment to praise your program of the priorities of the G20. Your 4 points are quite important for us all here in the European Union, for sure. Disaster response, it's, as you may know, it's a huge bet right now that we are having now. Security and defense also, because I think both things are linked. Civil protection and also the security and defense as European territory. So I believe that the capacity of response around the world will be detrimental for the secure future and to deal with climate change, but also with other threats. Regarding one of the things that I believe it's quite important, how to deal with low income countries and have access to fair ratings and to fair financing. I believe it's have a huge importance, and I also think that we should debate in the near future the relation between these low-income countries and level of democracy. I believe it's an important thing to take into account, but of course this is not the priority right now. The priority is to help the less developed countries to face all the challenges that they are having right now, especially the climate change. Finally, I would like only to make some comments regarding the critical raw materials, critical minerals, that, as you may know, we have a very good relation between the European Union and South Africa on that, and I received a lot of companies that were a little bit worried that some other countries in the world are trying to take the position of the European Union in the relation with South Africa regarding the critical raw materials, especially the minerals. And I, of course, understand that African countries are quite rich on that. We also represent 60% of all the agricultural land in the world, so we totally are aligned with your view to take a more sustainable and inclusive development on the minerals. But at the end, just to tell you that I'm very happy, and I have to make this. I have to praise you for this very good program and very good priorities, and of course, we'll be very happy to follow the G20 meeting with your presidency. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paolo. Any other voices from the floor here? You are invited to comment. You are invited to ask questions. If this is not the case, then allow me, please, to add on Paolo. I'm also interested in the processes that you described, Mr. Minguni. First of all, on the content. Since we very much agree on the priorities and the requests that you have just mentioned for the improvement of international collaboration and economic development, where do you see the hurdles, the main hurdles for improvements? Because you mentioned also working methodologies, and that it's sometimes very difficult to follow up, that we have declarations which are quite fine, which have the right proposals and agreements on the right proposals, but then in the follow-up nothing is going to happen, which is a mess. Or not sufficiently we try to implement our good wishes and our good ideas about a better future. So on the hurdles for the forthcoming declaration, because we know there is always more than one opinion on the subject matter itself, but also on the processes, the methodologies, do you have concrete ideas of how to improve the implementation of the agreed issues? I listened to your proposal and the idea about the permanent secretariat. Does this imply concrete ideas that have already been discussed on working level? That is of interest for our friends here as well. Thank you. And then I would give you the floor to answer our comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and also the Vice President, Mr. Paula Donashimento Cabral. Firstly, for the message of support for the work we are doing under our presidency, and also the issues you have highlighted. Maybe to respond briefly, firstly to the Vice President, especially on the issue of the critical minerals priority. Just to underscore, firstly, that the framework document that we are seeking to adopt under our presidency is just that, a framework which is a voluntary, non-binding and cooperative blueprint aimed at ensuring that the critical minerals resources become a driver of shared prosperity and sustainable development. We are pleased to inform that they have been in the negotiations that are ongoing on the framework thus far, been a broad support for some of the elements of the proposed framework, such as issues of governance and transparency, the issue of supply chain diversification, skills and capacity development. Of course, there are other issues where we still need to find each other, such as the question of investment in exploration, beneficiation, and of course increased local value addition. So those are some of the issues we are seized with in this process. Then going to the issues, important issues raised by the President on some of the possible hurdles that we need to overcome as we head towards the Leaders Summit and of course negotiating the declaration. I think the most important issue that we need to overcome is the question of navigating the geopolitical issues that are unfolding as we implement this work of our presidency. One of the key interventions we have made during our presidency was to follow the good example that we started last year under Brazil's presidency, that geopolitics should not be discussed in the technical working groups, so that these discussions don't impede on the technical issues. Working groups, in other words, should be entirely focused on technical aspects and priorities, whilst these geopolitical issues are dealt with at the Sherpa level. And as I indicated in my intervention, we have seen the positive results of that intervention, where we have had successful outcomes in the development working group and employment working group meetings that took place in July. And also, as was the case in the finance ministers' meeting, the third finance ministers' meeting that took place in Durban also in July. As we speak, the tourism working group meeting is taking place in Mpumalanga, which is an eastern province in South Africa, and we have no doubt that also with that focus on technical discussions, we will have a successful outcome. And then on the issues you raise on follow-up mechanisms, accountability, and possible reforms of the G20, indeed, these are matters that the presidency is seized with through the process of the review. One of the things we did under this review was to conduct a survey, a G20 survey with the assistance of the OECD, and one of the concerns that was raised was the issue in terms of how the agenda is set. So one of the proposals, as we know, the agenda is largely dependent on the president of the day, meaning that we can have the agenda we have put on the table as South Africa today, but next year there is no guarantee that when the next presidency takes place, there will be some linkages between what we were doing and the incoming president. So one of the proposals to ensure continuity is that the G20 should have a rolling work plan and strategic vision to ensure continuity, because some of the initiatives need a longer time frame for implementation. So these are some of the proposals on the table, which of course we will include in the report to be submitted to the leaders in November. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Mnguni. If there is no additional comment from your side, colleagues, then my final question is on the Stiglitz round, the global experts panel on inequality, which to me looks very promising, because SDG 10 is a decisive element of strategic use to create more resilient societies and to improve international collaboration. Is there a timeline for the report that is foreseen by Stiglitz and colleagues?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that questions. Yes, indeed, we expect the panel led by Professor Stiglitz to submit this report by the time of the summit in November. The panelists are already meeting to consider the issues that have been proposed as objectives of the panel. Firstly, stimulating global attention and debate on the growth in extreme wealth and income inequality that exists. Two, calling for the formation between government and civil society of new strategic alliances against inequality. Three, provide credible analysis on the state of wealth and income inequality, including impact on poverty and growth. And then lastly, recommend and mainstream evidence-based solutions vital to reducing extreme economic inequality within and between countries. So these may include issues such as progressive taxation, just transition and debt reforms. So that is the scope of the work that the panel is seized with, and as I indicated, it's expected then that by November we will have that report from the panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for this information. This is a very, very important initiative, and I'm pretty sure it will be also taken up by the European Parliament to discuss it here in our committees and in the plenary. Mr. Mangoni, that was very useful to have you here in this conversation. We thank you for the political ambition of South Africa, with which you strive the G20 presidency, and also, let me say that, for your wise leadership. Thanks a lot. I close this part of our agenda. I ask you, my colleagues, is there any other business from your side? This is not the case. Then allow me to mention that our next meeting, the date will be circulated as soon as we have fixed all the technicalities. In our next meetings, plural, in our next meetings, we will deal with the preparation of the IPM, of course, in November, and we will also have a word with the European side on the preparation of the mini summit that goes along with the G20 summit. You will remember that in the last meeting between South Africa and the European Union, there was an agreement of the leaders to have a mini summit alongside the G20 summit, in which we also perhaps have the chance to finalize a memorandum of understanding which governs our further economic collaboration. That is of major interest also for our delegation, and we will prepare for that. Thanks the interpreters, thanks all our teams that have prepared this meeting, thanks for attending this meeting. I close the meeting and we'll see you